Welcome to this Tutor to You Sociology topic video on media, focusing on the cultural effects model. The cultural effects model of media is based upon the ideas of Marxists and neo-Marxists such as Stuart Hall, and focuses largely on how the media transmits messages to their audience that alter the way in which individuals think. The model itself has evolved over time in response to criticism, particularly from neo-Marxists, over the extent to which individuals have the choice to accept or reject the messages that the media transmits. The main focus of the cultural effects model is that as the ruling class control the media, they are able to transmit the dominant ideology of society through these media sources over time, and that this alters the way in which individuals think and interact in society. There are several key elements to the cultural effects model. Primarily, there is the dominant ideology that is transmitted by media owners. This is contentious between different theorists, with some suggesting that dominant ideologies are not deliberately transmitted, but instead a result of cultural biases from middle-class editors who select information that reflects their own interests. A second factor is the way in which individuals interpret this message, what Hall referred to as encoding. A final element is that of context, how the individual experiences and worldview will influence their interpretation of the media. How does the cultural effects model work? It begins with media editors and owners selecting content that is to be transmitted, and this is based upon their ideological approach, although, as we have already discussed, whether this is deliberate based on cultural bias is debated by different theorists. This ideology is then transmitted to the masses through media sources as fact and without critical analysis. Individuals then have the ability to either accept or reject the messages that are transmitted based upon their own experiences and worldview. However, owners and editors do not simply transmit this message once. Instead, a similar ideology is repeated, often simplified to make it easier to understand. And this repetition causes individuals to question their own views. Over time, this repetition leads to the majority of the audience accepting the view. How is this applied to contemporary society? Well, critical theorists suggest that the media often transmits dominant ideologies that serve the needs of the ruling classes. Over the past year, much of the media reporting of news has focused on industrial action and climate change, and the disruption that protests around these two issues have caused. Furthermore, agendas against workers and climate change activism have been presented as being the view of the masses without critical analysis of both sides of the debate, according to Marxists. This is similar to the way in which ideologies were presented over the war on terror in the early part of the 21st century, with Rees and Lewis commenting on the way in which reporting of conflicts in Afghanistan and Iraq were presented uncritically in the US media. However, in contemporary society there has been a growth in the number of media sources, particularly online sources where many individuals gain their news information from, and this has led to criticisms of consensus approaches that are presented through traditional media sources. A second evaluation is the extent to which journalism has become embedded and therefore transmits a dominant ideology in exchange for exclusive access. First seen during the Iraq War, it can also be evidenced through reporting on the COVID-19 pandemic, in particular in the UK, with accusations of journalists reporting uncritically government decisions in return for access to senior politicians. A final evaluation comes from Curran, who argues that individuals' ideological views often come from the media that they have previously accessed, and this influences their choice of media sources that they listen to or read. For example, more conservative ideologies will look to newspapers and TV news that confirms this ideology. That concludes this Tutor to You Sociology topic video on media, focusing on the cultural effects model. Thanks for watching.